Exodus ends with a tent filled with fire. Leviticus begins with the silence inside that fire. The tabernacle is built, the cloud has descended, but no one can enter, not even Moses. What comes next isn't a movement, it's instruction. This is the book of Leviticus. To modernize, it looks like ritual. To ancient Israel, it was revelation. How does a holy God dwell among an imperfect people? How do you draw near and live? Leviticus isn't a list of restrictions. It's a liturgy of nearness. A God who says, "Be holy, for I am holy," also says, "When you fail, I'll show you how to return." This isn't about perfection. It's about formation. This is a blueprint for how to be a human again, not shaped by slavery, but shaped by glory. Leviticus is the center of the Torah, physically, theologically, and spiritually. While Genesis captured beginnings, Exodus revealed rescue, Leviticus shows what it means to live with the one who rescued you. This is where deliverance meets discipline, where worship is structured, where nearness comes with boundaries. God's holiness is not an idea, it's a fire. And this fire doesn't destroy, it refines. The people who were slaves are becoming priests. The tent is not just a symbol, it's an invitation, but an invitation with terms. Leviticus teaches the language of that invitation, and that language begins with blood, smoke, and awe. The tent is ready, the fire has fallen, and now a way is opened. God speaks, and what he gives are not walls, but doors, offerings, 5 of them. Each one symbolic, each one sacred. Burnt offering, total surrender, grain offering, gratitude and provision, peace offering, communion and fellowship, sin offering, purification and cleansing, guilt offering, repayment and restoration. These aren't just rituals, they're a rhythm of relationship. The altar becomes the center of life. Blood is not horror here, it's mercy. Fire doesn't consume and rage, it purifies. This is how an unholy people draw near to a holy God and survive. The priests were trained to oversee them, to intercede, to carry the sacred. They wore robes that bore the names of the tribes. They walked with blood on their garments. They stood as a bridge between heaven and earth. And every time someone brought an offering, they were reminded, sin doesn't just disappear. It is carried away by something else. What you eat, what you touch, where you go, everything in life becomes a picture of what it means to be set apart. Leviticus lays out what is clean and unclean, not to shame, but to shape. Uncleanliness isn't sin, it's a signal, a reminder of how fragile life is, how easily brokenness spreads. God teaches them through skin conditions, through childbirth, through mold and disease. It may seem foreign, but it's deeply physical. God's people are learning, even our bodies preach. There are dietary laws, not because food is evil, but because choosing what to eat forms what we become. And at the center of all of it is a day unlike any other, the Day of Atonement. Once a year, one man enters the most holy place. He carries blood for himself and for the people. He releases a scapegoat, bearing the sins of the nation led into the wilderness. This isn't superstition, it's substitution, a picture of what it means for sin to be seen, carried, and removed. The clean and unclean laws train the people to see the world as sacred space. They learn that death spreads, life must be guarded. A woman after childbirth is unclean, not because she sinned, but because she touched the threshold between life and death. A person with skin disease is not unworthy, but is held outside the camp as a sign of vigilance. The home with mold isn't cursed, but it's monitored, purified, or dismantled. All of it teaches one thing. Sin contaminates, but God purifies. And the Day of Atonement? It's the holiest day. 2 goats, one is sacrificed, and the other is sent away. The first satisfies, the second removes. And the high priest, he enters once a year with trembling, with blood, with incense clouding the mercy seat. Imagine watching the priest lay his hands on the goat. naming your failures, then watching it walk to the horizon. That was the gospel before the gospel. God's presence doesn't just dwell in the temple. It changes how we farm, how we feast, how we live. The call to holiness in Leviticus expands beyond the tabernacle. It guides in economics, relationships, sexuality, time. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. This call isn't a demand for moralism. It's a blueprint for sacred culture. Farmers must leave gleanings for the poor. Weights and measures must be honest. Judges must be impartial. Even the land rests every 7 years. And in the 15th year, everything resets. Slaves are freed, debts canceled, land restored. It's called Jubilee. And it reveals that God's vision isn't just about sacrifice. It's about restoration. The command to love your neighbor as yourself first appears here in a book of blood and smoke, because holiness is never just vertical, it's horizontal. Leviticus is not a detour in the story. It is the heart of it. It shows the proximity to God is possible, but not casual, through offering, cleansing, through character. God makes a way to dwell among his people, and he makes a people who can dwell with him. Leviticus closes with blessings for obedience and warnings for rebellion. It's not just law, it's covenant poetry. If you walk with God, the land will flourish, the rain will pour, the enemies will fall before you. But if you abandon him, the land itself will spit you out, because the land, like the people, belong to him. And even in the curses, there is mercy. If they confess, I will remember the covenant, because God's holiness is fierce, but his faithfulness is fiercer. In Numbers, the people set out, and every step tests what Leviticus formed. What would it look like if holiness touched every corner of your life? Not just worship. Leviticus is the challenge to every modern reader. It's strange, foreign, detailed, but it's also stunning. It reveals a God who doesn't retreat from brokenness, but moves into the middle of it and says, here's how we live together. Pray for me and I for you. Keep looking up. If this hit you deeper than expected, there's more. Check the full playlist to follow the story, from Genesis to Revelation, book by book, breath by breath. Subscribe if you haven't, and share it with someone who needs to hear this story. This is a very long road, and we're just getting started.